Welcome back to another edition of Political Breakfast. We are so glad that you are here and listening on WABE. And 2024 is winding down, and I don't know about you, Tharon and Brian. I feel a little exhausted. It has been quite a year, hasn't it? For politics, for football, for just about everything. The year is winding down rather quickly here, and this is our annual year-end show. And of course, we have a lot to talk about. So good to have you both here today. As we traditionally do, we start talking about football, and those Falcons, boy, they showed up yesterday, didn't they?
It gave me a little bit of hope.
Well, as we predicted, look, we needed Tampa Bay to lose, and they did. So I told a bunch of my Cowboy fans, friends, I was like, look, I'm a Cowboy fan for one day.
Yep.
But no, look, big change. I mean, just real quick.
Wow.
The Falcons played tremendously well in Las Vegas, and the defense did. The offense didn't do well. So Lisa, I knew that they were going to make a change. I did not know they were going to bench Kirk Cousins, a man who we supposed to pay at least $90 million guaranteed money to sit him down and bring in Michael Penix Jr. But Michael did a good job, played a good game. The defense stepped up. So now we just got to win out. And I'm worried about the Sunday night game in Washington, D.C. against the Commanders.
Yep, that's going to be tough.
That's the one we got to win. But the fate is in our hands. And let me just say this real quick, Lisa. We have so many fans that were on the trip to Vegas. They got on me about not shouting them out. But thank you to everyone I saw on the Delta flight. Thank you to the people I saw in the Bellagio, the Aria. And Lisa, we have so many black women, sisters who love you, who were saying, hey, we really appreciate everything you guys talk about on the show. And B-Rob, the brothers listen too. And I did have one Trump guy come up to me, just one out of maybe, 50. One black guy had the courage. He had the courage to come up to me and talk to me about the election. I won't say his name, but he knows who he is. But no, but great win for the Falcons.
B-Rob was right all along. B-Rob was right.
One out of 50. Yeah, he was right. 1 out of 50. Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. We appreciate our listeners, and that's good to know as well. And Mike Vick, he some good news for him.
Got him a
since we
job.
Last talked. Yeah, he got a job.
That should be fun to watch.
Yeah.
And I would say I want to shout out Valdosta State. They went to the national championship. Now they got slobber knocked in the national championship out in Texas, but just a great run. They were undefeated this year. I bring it up.
Right.
My wife is the alumni association president for Valdosta State. So we were intently watching. Lost our coach. He went to work. He's going to leave to go to an HBCU in Texas where he's from. But great coach, great run by them. And I'm still trying to figure out. I'm not as fancy as Tharon, right? Flying around to Vegas, go to a Falcons game. Middle of the week,
and then go to the mayor's ball and all that kind of stuff.
Y'all, that'll be wrong. It was a Monday night football game. Okay, Monday night football. That's not the middle of the week.
That's the middle of the week. And I'm not as fancy, right? But I'm trying to think about, am I going to be like Tharon and at the last minute decide to go to New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl? I haven't decided yet.
You've been talking about it. You've been talking about it.
Yeah.
Go, man.
I'm excited.
Go.
We got Penix here for the Falcons, making his debut and just killing it. And now we need Gunnar Stockton to do the same thing down in New Orleans. In Gunnar, we trust, I guess. I feel good about Notre Dame, us taking them out. I feel good about our run, actually, going into the national championship game. But
have faith.
We'll see.
Have faith.
Go Dogs.
Have faith. Well, over the weekend, a bit of sad news under the Gold Dome, and I say under the Gold Dome because he was larger than life there, and that was former Senator Vincent Fort, who lost his battle with cancer, had been suffering for many years with the disease, and lost his battle over the weekend. And this was a man who really fought for the least of these and really stood up, for those in battle, and one of those legislators who I always admired and who was always, available to talk. And, you can look at that both ways, saying, he was always, available to get in front of the camera and what have you, in front of a microphone. But, you always saw through his, his rhetoric, because he had this huge heart, for the people. And I always admired that about him. And I think he'll be sorely, sorely missed.
Lisa, everything you said about Senator Fort is true. And I know he meant a lot to you and so many journalists and anchors, because he would oftentimes go on television and say everything that people were thinking. But you're right. His heart was always in the right place, and he was always about the people. You know, I had a chance to see him on December 2nd at the Atlanta City Council meeting, where all these council members came together to honor him. And Lisa, it was the longest sort of proclamation, personal resolution moment I've ever seen, where literally it lasted over an hour. And you saw folks from all over the country come to Atlanta to honor him. Well, I shook his hand. He was in a wheelchair, and I thanked him. And real quick story, just bear with me here, B-Rob. A lot of folks don't know this, but one of the things I like to tell folks, you know, me and B-Rob, we get hate, right? Because we come on the show every week and we say things. And one of the things that people do in the political community all over the world, but particularly in Georgia, is they try to question your credibility and what you're talking about. And what I do, Lisa, sometimes, and I know B-Rob does this, I remind people I've been doing this for 24 years. And so I met Senator Vincent Fort back in 1999. And how did I meet him? Real quick. I was a senior, going into my senior year in Clark Lane University, and I was involved in the NAACP chapter, and just wanted to advocate and learn more about politics. So fast forward 2000, after I got out of college, I think maybe in 2001, one of my first sort of activism sort of protests was with Senator Fort. Senator Fort, Derek Bozeman, Michael Langford, Bonnie Ware, Gail Davenport when she was with the Rainbow Push, all these folks that said, hey, we're going to get some young students to load up a Harmon Brothers bus, and we're going to drive out to Woodstock, Georgia. And I remember getting on this bus, and Senator Fort organized me and about 50 young students from the AUC, and we went outside into this cul-de-sac in Woodstock and protested in front of this man's house. Now, Lisa, I had no idea whose house it was. I didn't know where we were going. I didn't know. I knew why we were protesting. And this is why the story is going to be so fitting for Senator Fort. Back then, remember, we didn't have ChatGPT. We didn't have all this internet. It was literally word of mouth and LexisNexis, where you could find out who was who and where they lived. So on our way out there, they prepped us and said, guys, we're going to a home of a banker who literally has been leading the effort to give predatory loans out to disadvantaged Black people, low-income Black and brown people in the city of Atlanta. Like, this is a bank who literally was charging people upwards to 20% in interest rates. I mean, giving out predatory loans. And so we protested in front of this man's house. I felt so bad. And then, boom, a week later, this bank came forward. I think, news stations wrote about them. And so many people came up to Vincent Fort after that protest and thanked him for what he did. The reason I bring that up is that, look, he'll go down in history as being a person that went to the governor's office, Brian, as you know, that would literally probably handcuff himself to a table. He went, remember when Grady was trying to do whatever they were doing, him and Tommy Dorch and Derek Bozeman, they got carried out of the hospital. He would go to the well and call out Democrats and Republicans. But the one thing that I thanked him for when I saw him on December 2nd, I thanked him for really sparking my career, because what's deeply rooted in what I do every week on this show is my activism. Yes, Brian likes to call me fancy. Yes, I am a moderate Democrat who's been able to do well. Yes, I married well. Yes, I have a praying grandmama, all that, a praying mama who still prays for me. But Lisa, I am rooted in the streets. And it was Senator Fort whose legacy will go down as being a troublemaker, a good troublemaker. He's smart. Republicans hated him when he would call them out. And more importantly, and I'll wrap this up, he would call me out. He would listen to this podcast and he'll say, Lita, my brother, hey, you went on there today and you didn't want to hit those corporate leaders. Or, hey, man, you over there being nice to the Republicans again. And they, did this. And so I think that, it was so hard for me to see him there. But I do thank those Atlanta council members, the community, his son, his daughter. Please accept my sincere condolences. Yeah. And he was a fighter, and he's going to be missed.
Yeah. Oh, boy. No one like him. Yeah. He was sick when he was running for mayor, and, just a fighter. A true fighter. I
really didn't know he was sick until they did that city council thing that Tharon mentioned. And I was like, well, this is odd. And then I realized what was going on. I have a story, too, and it goes actually dovetails with what Tharon was saying about him coming to the governor's office back in Governor Deal's first term when I was his communications director. Fort led a protest in the governor's office over Medicaid expansion because obviously we weren't doing that, and he wanted us to do that. And so he did a sit-in or something like it, and basically it was all kind of a nod and a wink about how this was going to play out. Like, he wasn't going to leave. He was insisting on being arrested. That was the the visual that he wanted. Yeah. And he actually was a master, a really good media mind as far as creating a stunt that would provide a visual that would then get news coverage. Obviously he had Tharon go be part of a stunt. That sounds like a pejorative word. I don't mean it that way. That's part of what I do for a living is create these visuals and these scenarios. So he gets perp walked out by my office, which is on the first floor of the Capitol. So I went out and I played along with him, and I had an early version of a camera phone and took a picture of him getting perp walked out and then posted it on my social media. And
he would get a kick out of it.
We didn't know each other, right, at the time. But years later, it was never mentioned. He sees me somewhere, and he's just like, yeah, I remember when you posted that photo on your Twitter. Yeah. And he had his big Coke bottle glasses that he wore, right?
His smile. Yeah, he loved it.
But by that point in time, I had left the governor's office, and I was working with an outside group on creating a waiver program for Medicaid, which would do a mini expansion. It was a step in the direction he wanted to go. It wasn't what he wanted, but a step in that direction. And he pulled me aside at Eggs and Issues, would have been like 2016, 2017. Mm-hmm. He was like, me and you, we need to talk. We need to talk, and with the biggest smile on his face. Mm-hmm. And that's when I realized, when I saw that smile on his face, when we never had anything but confrontation in a public setting, but never anything interpersonal, that there was an impishness and a bit of glee in his provocations that he did in the public sphere, that he got the joke. My condolences to his family. His life was ended far too soon. 68 seems mighty young to me now.
Yeah, it was always, how'd I do? Did I get the message across? Did I get the message? He loved it. Yeah, so, he will be missed. Rest in heaven. Job well done. Servant well done, Vincent Fort. Again, I talked about this as a year ender, and just really want you all to pick your brains and talk about some of the best of 2024, some of the best stories. And, Fonnie Willis comes to mind. I don't know if you want to start there and go from there, Tharon, but you up first and start, and then Brian, share some of your stories, your favorite standouts of 2024.
Yeah, for the sake of time, I mean, look, I don't want to spend a lot of time on Fonnie Willis. I feel like if I had to sort of rank how much we talked about certain topics on this podcast, I mean, Fonnie Willis is definitely up there because it was a case that really started on January 6th of 2021. And the reason I bring that up is because that's when the insurrection started. This is when we found out all these things that now President-elect Trump may or may not have been involved in. And then, boom, you saw all of these very mad, Republicans sort of participate in an unconstitutional temper tantrum at the Capitol. And then that's when, the calls started, and then, Secretary Raffensperger reported it. So I feel like we talked about the Fonnie Willis case that Trump was involved in really starting back in 2021, and then finally to see it come to fruition and play out the way it did in 2024 with the whole inappropriate relationship with Nathan Wade and the judges, and then Fonnie Willis going to the stands and defending herself. And now, as we close out 2024, an appeals court has basically removed her from the case while it still would go on. She won't be the prosecutor on it anymore, and now it'll go to the Supreme Court. The other thing that really stands out to me really quickly, Lisa, for the sake of time, I'll just kind of run down my list. It's got to be the Biden-Harris administration, as far as President Biden, leading what I still think was a really good 4 years in the White House, did a lot of great things for this country, which I know B-Rob will talk about this, but of course the debate in Atlanta changed everything. It changed him. It changed his legacy, his life. It changed Kamala Harris's life with 107 days to go. She became the nominee for president. But the one thing that sticks out to me in 2024 is two things. One, how electric, how amazing the rise of a black woman, Kamala Harris, who was vice president, to run for office. But the other thing that stands out to me in 2024, Lisa, and Democrats, we got to call ourselves out, is that we ignored the warning signs, and we ignored the fact that many Republicans want to change. Some Democrats want to change, and the country was hurting. And the thing that really was interesting to me, as I sit here in my basement that's being worked on, right? And I said I'm good on this because it reminds me like everything is a work in progress. And so us winning again in 26 is a work in progress, meaning that we got to get back to the basics. We got to become more of a moderate party, and we got to listen to working class Americans. The last thing I'll say is this. I do think that in 2024, the city of Atlanta made some really big strides. The one thing that I want to point out, which I haven't talked a lot about on this podcast, is shout out to Chris Womack, who was the outgoing chair of the Metro Chamber. And shout out to the Metro Chamber. I know that's shocking you, B-Rob, because I know you do a lot of work with them, but I'm shouting them out. And I'm shouting out Central Atlanta Progress, but of course our mayor, Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens. And what did they do together, right? All of these organizations, I'm probably missing a few, South Downtown, MARTA, they all came together in 2024 and said, we're going to do something about our unhoused citizens, many of whom we oftentimes inappropriately refer to as homeless people, because these are human beings. These are people. These are women, children, and men who are on the streets of Atlanta. And I truly believe that it took the leadership of all those organizations, those political leaders, Fulton County Chairman Rod Pitts, everybody who literally got to come together and do something about homelessness. And then lastly, I think the other thing that stands out for me in 2024 is this unwavering commitment by Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens to do something about affordability and affordable housing in this city. I mean, if you look at how he was able to take containers and create 40 module homes, you look at all these things about how he's converting old office buildings, the Georgia Pacific building, turn that into mixed use and commercial housing. And then also just, shout out to the commercial industry who took a huge hit during COVID. And now I'm seeing buildings become occupied again. And so those are just some of the political things that if I had to really think about 2024, that really stood out to me. And really also just want to end by saying something about outgoing DeKalb County CEO Michael Thurman. Lisa, this is unheard of. When do you see a black man running a county, took a county over when it was $20 million in the hole, and now leaving them with over $150 million in rainy day funds, eliminating deficit spending, integrity. Then you don't see him on the news from taking money and letting bad contractors act and all this stuff. And so he won't ever say it. He's gonna probably kill me for mentioning it, but I know that he's got mixed emotions right now, because this was a county that he took over 8 years ago. And while we'll talk about later what he decides to do later on, there's all these speculations, but I want to thank him for his outstanding leadership in leading DeKalb County in a very tough time, taking it over from my frat brother Lee May at the time. But he has led that county with integrity, with commitment to the people. He fed people, Lisa, for 2.5 years, giving them food on Saturdays, working with former agriculture commissioner and others to get this food and organization. So definitely his work to get things done in 2024 would definitely go. And then shout out to CEO-elect Lorraine Cochran Johnson, who made a historic run for CEO, becoming the first black woman to lead that county in a very contested race. And so I'm very eager to see her lead the county and basically moving in a new direction, and will be a part of her legacy.
I'll ditto that Michael Thurman stuff. I'm a DeKalb resident, and I appreciate the way the county's been governed over the last 8 years. I think it's been a direction change from what it had been in the past. So I'll miss having him there. We're going into the great unknown now, and it's a good time probably to mention once again that I think Republicans should be allowed to vote for CEO in a nonpartisan race for that position, because it's important for all of us. The big stuff this year for me, obviously, as Tharon said, the debate. There was a political earthquake, and Atlanta was the epicenter of it. And I remember that day so well. It was a blazing hot day, and Tharon and I met up at McCamish Pavilion across the street from the debate to do a cable news hit in the middle of the afternoon. And my wife was out of town, so my daughter was with me. So she got to go and be part of this really historic day, be there in the media center and all that, which was really cool. She had these people on TV taking pictures of her, so she felt really important when she was there, and Tharon helped make her feel welcome there as well. But I remember in that interview, they were like, the lady, it was a liberal platform show, and they were talking about the lack of a ground game for Trump. And I said, the ground game doesn't matter if Joe Biden goes out there and looks like he has dementia. I didn't use those words quite that strongly, but that was my point. And she looked at me like I had just used the F word on live TV, right? But I was right. That's exactly what happened that day. And the election was never the same after that. On the local level, I think you had that Trump attacking Governor Kemp from the Atlanta rally back in August. It was also a momentum changer here. A lot of backlash in Georgia. A lot of Republicans saying, no, we love you, we're with you, but don't do that. You're hurting yourself. And Trump heard that, and there was a real direction change. And Kemp eventually came on board, used his political operation to support Trump's election in Georgia. They did some joint events together. They're not going to be best friends. They didn't hold hands in front of the crowd and raise them up in the victory formation, but there was a peace pact essentially of non-aggression. So that was very helpful. On the state legislative level, the impactful things this year, one, the killing of Laken Riley was a flashpoint that played out throughout the rest of the year. It's a name we still hear, at least on the Republican side, a lot. And it led to a law change led by Houston Gaines in the State House and others to make sure that local law enforcement keeps criminal illegals detained until the feds can come in and have jurisdiction over them, get them deported or put them in prison, whatever the case may be, whatever is needed there. But I want to say, the Laken Riley story just scratches the surface of what's out there. The killer and his brother was a member of a Venezuelan gang, and it is a Venezuelan gang that is violent and scary and active, and they are growing every day as the people continue to come into the country illegally. They have a critical mass. Even if we stopped it all right now, they have a critical mass, and they are very scary. And it's going to be an ongoing problem for us here in this state and really across the country. And lastly, on the legislature, this was a big step for parent choice in education this year, with the promised scholarships finally getting a foothold and getting passed. It's a very limited program, only applies to students who are zoned for the lowest 25% performing schools, and the legislature only funded a certain number of seats. So not everybody who qualifies could really get a scholarship, but it's a first step. And I think if we see parents come out and ask for these in large numbers, it's going to show the demand. It's going to show parents' urge to have their kids have better choices if they're in a place where they're not getting a good education. It's a huge step for Georgia. I hope it's just the first step. I hope we're going to go much further and make sure that more parents have options. More parents have the chance to get some of their tax dollars back and let those dollars follow the child wherever the child goes, so that every kid has opportunity in this state. So those are the big things for 2024 for me. And it's been an exciting year where Georgia once again was decisive in the presidential election, where hundreds of millions of dollars were spent contacting us, Georgians, the super voters. And I think us finishing with the fourth smallest margin in 2024 will make sure that we are once again targeted in 2028 when we're going to have an open seat presidential race, which I know no one wants to talk about right now, me included, but we will see what the margins are much sooner than that in 2026 when we have not only a governor's race that's open, but an open lieutenant governor's race, an open attorney general's race, an open secretary of state's race, an open labor commissioner race, an open insurance commissioner race. I mean, it's going to be a nuts year, and we still have a lot of politics to go over the next 2 years as we get past 2024.
All right. Again, 2025 on the horizon. Thank you so much for your thoughts as always. And y'all don't have a visual here, but I don't know. Is Tharon doing his laundry? Is he doing his laundry? Is he hanging up his laundry here? What's going on there?
I had to get paint a
picture for our listeners here of what we're seeing. Look like an old-fashioned clothesline there, hanging up some clothes there.
No, it's So I want to thank B-Rob right there for filibustering for me, because what the viewers cannot hear or see is him seeing me sort of run around trying to find a charging outlet from my laptop. So you guys had to go on this sort of tour with me to see me sort of try to get a charger. But one of the things I want to mention, Lisa, really quickly is, me and Brian just try to cover a lot, but a few other things that I want to mention. Of course, we talked about Fonnie Willis, and I'm glad that Brian talked about Lake and Raleigh. But the other thing that I think that there's some kind of quote unquote honorable mentions are, we cannot forget the tragic mass shooting down at Appalachia High School. That is something that I know we've talked a lot about on this podcast, because I know that horrific incident is going to hopefully get legislators to act. The other thing that, happened in 2024 was we went through a very uncomfortable conversation about some of the inhumane, deplorable conditions of the Fulton County Jail. Of course, the mugshot picture with Sheriff Labatt, but also Sheriff Labatt winning re-election at a time where there was a lot of critics about the jail. And then as we close out Georgia 2024 and everything that's going on here, we also just got some very, very concerning reports about the state prison system and how that needs to be improved. And then lastly, Lisa, and I know Brian may want to do another round, how can we forget the Atlanta Police Training Center, which, as we are taping it in 2024, the mayor and others stood there and saying that it's moving forward, it's done, it's going to be operable next year. But also there was a lot of calls for more transparency the process, a lot of calls for people wanting to feel like they could be heard. They want to input, they wanted questions answered. But, the city leaders and the mayor came through together and stayed steadfast on getting this center completed. But those are just kind of my little ending honorable mention list. But I think we covered a lot in 2024.
Yep.
Yeah. And I wanted to mention the Appalachia shooting.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you for that.
What's going to happen with gun control here in our state? Yeah.
No, I think it's one of the big issues of 2024. Thank you for remembering it, and certainly one that was emotionally rocking for all of us when it's so close to home. For the longest time on this show, going back to when Dennis Hare was the host before his retirement, I would say when these things happened, thank God it hasn't happened in Georgia. And really now we can't say that anymore. And I hate that. I hate that this has hit us here, that so many parents and students have to take their kids to school in fear of what might happen. There's a sickness in this country, and I don't think there's an easy answer to it. If there was, I think we would do it. It's not going to be gun confiscation. That's going to, that's not going to work here. This is going to be one of those important things over the next generation for Georgians, for Americans to tackle. And we'll continue to harden schools, continue to add resource officers, emergency systems. We saw the resource officers and the emergency systems in place at Appalachia pay dividends. It's hard to say that when you still lost 4 people. It doesn't minimize that tragedy and that
Not
loss.
at all.
But you did see steps taken save lives, because it could have been even worse than it was.
I think well said. 2024, again, quite a year, and more to come in 2025. And just want to personally thank both of you for your wonderful insight and concept. It is appreciated. The fans appreciate it, and the downloads say a lot. So people are listening to Political Breakfast. So happy holidays to both of you, and happy New Year, and a lot more to come from Political Breakfast in 2025. So enjoy your families, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Lisa, so much. Merry Christmas to everyone. Thank you, Tharon and Lisa, for doing this final show. It's something I asked to do because my podcast feed dries up Christmas week. When I finally have time to be out walking my dog, and there's no new content coming in. So this is for all of you out there walking your dogs in Atlanta and all over Georgia who need some new podcast content. Merry Christmas to all of you. Merry Christmas to you too. Another great year with you guys. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this gang. And I really do look forward to taping this, and I look forward to when I'm out and about, people going, I recognize your voice from WABE. Right. It really is a wonderful audience. Thank y'all so much for giving us your time.
Yeah, just to echo what Lisa and Brian said, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays and Happy New Year to all our listeners, loyal fans. Lisa, Brian, Lily, thank you all so much for being so important in this partnership. Like Brian and yourself, Lisa, I love the feedback that we get from fans. And so I'm really, really excited about 2025. And everyone, enjoy your families, enjoy some time off, and be safe.
All right. Best is yet to come.